to tell you otherwise, and that's when we talk about some of the issues that you have, because in the early resolution stages, when you're trying to make things work, these are very patient people, and sometimes you say, oh, my assignment doesn't work. That's where it comes into play for somebody like me as an instructional designer to really be supportive as much as I possibly can, and that means if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they're freaking out, I want to be there for them. Maybe it's 7 when I get back to them, but the idea is I really like to keep a close hand on the early adopters, because I want them to see themselves through the frustration, because after that it's really cool, and I think that's what they're going to demonstrate to you. Do you have a question? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so with that, I want to introduce you to Diane Auslander.
Hi, I had a much longer PowerPoint earlier, but I realized it would take too much time, so now I have the shortest PowerPoint in history, but I'm sticking with it. I'm going to talk about basic uses of VoiceThread, as I use it in my hybrid internet courses. Why I use VoiceThread. I think it gives students a chance to step outside the normal classroom paradigm and view the topic or issue or whatever from another point of view. I think VoiceThread assignments provide a great opportunity to use images. I am a medieval historian. The Middle Ages are pretty alien to today's students, and I think images are a good way to help them access and understand the mindset of the Middle Ages. And it also, very often, images are easier for them to analyze than text, and it gives them new insights into the past. Sometimes VoiceThread can be used to allow students to voice their opinions. As a historian, I'm always telling them, I am not interested in your opinion, I'm only interested in what you can prove. So it's satisfying for them to occasionally be able to express their opinions. And I get a better idea of how they relate to the material, how they integrate it into what they already know. Okay, so, all right, rid of this. All right, let's go up here. Just leave them as well. All right, I'm going to give you some examples now of how I use VoiceThread in the classroom. This is my course, my Blackboard site for my course on women in medieval and early modern Europe. Obviously, we are in the early modern phase. Elizabeth there. We go to assignments, and now that VoiceThread has been integrated with Blackboard, eventually we'll get to the assignments. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down. It's very easy for students to access these assignments. Hopefully this will work, as it has all morning.
And as you see the course going by, you kind of get the idea that there's a lot of, clear direction, which is one of the more exciting things about watching them grow as teachers, online teachers.
Okay, so this is a particular assignment. I use VoiceThread very often for assignments on material that is, for assignments that are not central to the course, material that's not central to the course, but it's background material that helps them understand other things that are central to the course. So you click on that link right there on Blackboard, you click launch, and voila! We're there. Thank you very much. Okay, now you can either have it full screen, or have it automatically come up full screen, or you can click on this and it'll go full screen. What happens is immediately my comments and questions about the images come up. We're not going to go through that. I don't have time, but I'll briefly describe this. This is obviously not a medieval or early modern image here. This is the Venus of Willendorf from 24,000, 26,000 years ago. When I start this course, I ask my students, where do you think ideas about women's inferiority come from? And they usually say Christianity. So this is one of several assignments I give them to show that ideas about women come far before Christianity, and that Christianity adopts them and changes them according to its own beliefs. So this is Venus of Willendorf. Students can use this magnifying glass tool to look more closely. For example, a lot of students thought she didn't have any arms, but if you use the magnifying glass, you see that she does. They're just resting. conveniently on the little area there. And you can really check it out, which I will not. Okay, that's enough of that. For commenting, they can make them their own icons. This is my icon. If you don't want to, VoiceThread will give you an icon. And you click on comment, and they can either type their comments, comes off over here, you just get rid of that, and you can type a good deal of material in a response in this section. You can record it on your laptop or PC. You can record it on your cell phone, or you can do a video. So they have various options to play around with this and have a good time with their responses. What I'm giving them here is 4 images. The images of women as and women's power, women's divinity as being associated with the earth, with fertility, with abundance, and how, when you get to Christianity, these ideas are still prevalent in society, but Christianity believes the earth is a site of sin and corruption, and that sexuality is a threat, to your chances for salvation. And so this is how they change ideas about female sanctity, female sacrality here. Totally different images. Whereas the image of Zeus that I have here, and the image of Michelangelo's God, Christian God breathing life into Adam, are very similar. Their positions are different, but they're both old white men, half naked with beards and stuff with big, powerful physiques. So that's what I want to point out to them, that a lot of these ideas are inherited and they run through the filter of Christianity. This is just an example of a young lady who I guess we don't have sound on, well, it doesn't matter, I kept this to it anyway, recorded her response. She recorded a different response for each image, whereas this young lady responded to all the images in one. I don't know why the response is coming out below the screen here, but usually it doesn't. So they have those choices. Now, we're still in the Blackboard environment, so we can go right back up to assignments and get back to our, obviously, Blackboard assignments. I want to show you another example from this course in which I use Blackboard to support another assignment. Okay? So that was using Blackboard to introduce materials, background materials, and this one is using Blackboard to support an assignment. The assignment I'm supporting asks the students to, in a discussion board assignment, to pick a side. They're given arguments, two sides of the issue of the question of, did women have a renaissance? And in Blackboard, they're supposed to pick a side and say why they think that argument is more persuasive. So, once again, I'm going to get rid of my comments and everything. I give them this image of the painting of the School of Athens by Raphael, and I ask them to focus on this part of the image right here, and I give them a close-up of that particular part of the image. Now, the story goes that this was actually an image of the 4th century Alexandrian female polymath, Hypatia. And they have done previously in the course an assignment on Hypatia, so they know who she was. And that when the bishop came to approve this painting, he said, you can't have her in the painting. She was a threat to Christianity. You have to take that out. So he had originally painted her with dark skin as an Egyptian. So what he does is he lightens the skin and changes her slightly so she looks like the Pope's favorite nephew. He must have been rather feminine, actually. I love the way where this guy is looking here. I think it's fascinating. So I asked him then, what is her threat to Christianity? Why is she threatening Christianity? Did he really have to go all the way back to the 4th century to find a woman who might be considered a Renaissance woman? You know, is this trying to say something? What is he trying to say here? And that sort of supports the other assignment that I have. Now, I'm going to go back to assignments briefly, and then I'm going to link to the VoiceThread. Well, I'm just going to actually go right here. It's quicker. I have here 7 pages of VoiceThread assignments, many of them duplicates, of course. And I'm going to show you how I use it to help explain or help students understand issues they're having problems with. So I'm going to, this is my LEH 300 course, interdisciplinary course. These are both hybrid courses, by the way, on King Arthur and history, literature, and film, in which I have them watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Now, they have no idea what Monty Python is trying to do. You know, they think it's kind of funny, but they just, what is this all about? They don't know that they still knight people in England. They don't know that they have all these chivalric orders. They don't know anything about the Church of England. So this is a brand new one, so there are no responses on it yet. But, oh no, this is the wrong one. I'm so sorry. Let me go back. Monty Python one. So I have to figure out a better way to load text up onto this. But I give them a little background, talk about how if they're satirizing the institutions of the church and monarchy, give them a little background, and then I have them in part one, I have 3 images, and they answer questions about those images. Now, the first image is of a medieval knighting ceremony. The second image is a modern knighting ceremony. And the third is Prince William cavorting about in his Order of the Garter outfit. Now, sorry, this is part 2. I asked them then, what do you think, why is Monty Python making fun of this? What do they think the ruling class should be doing instead of playing at being medieval knights or clinging on to these notions that they think are medieval as part of their daily lives? The next part is on the church, in which I show a still from the movie, which you actually just saw, where the monks go through the village beating themselves on the head with boards. Meanwhile, they're surrounded by starving peasants. I couldn't find a picture with the peasants, so I explained that in my little comments. And I asked the students, what do you think that Monty Python thinks these people should be doing besides hitting themselves with boards to show how terribly pious they are? What is the point of this scene? So those are 3 major ways in which I use VoiceThread. I do tend to use more images than text because of what I said earlier, so I think they make it easier for students to access medieval thought, etc. And then finally, in terms of future use, VoiceThread does allow students to be creative, to make their own assignment, make their own presentations, etc., and interact more with the material. But I haven't explored that. So my co-presenter and I at the end are going to give some ideas of how we might go about exploring those things in the future. All right, that's it for me. And I'm going to get rid of this. Huh. Oh, right there. Oh, good. You can leave.
Good, I'll just switch that over.
All right.
So, Professor Felix Suchma is going to be our next presenter.
How's everyone doing? Let me just switch this over. Actually, I don't know if I need this open. I should be able to,
Right, yeah, you can
to go and switch quickly. What I'm going to do is actually, I've been using VoiceThread for basically this semester, since the start of the calendar year, for lectures. I teach online courses, both the asynchronous online course and do a couple of hybrid courses. So for me, it was, and what I'd like to talk about is the process by which I sort of came to using VoiceThread, how I'm using it, why I'm using it, and then, as Diane mentioned, the future benefits or the future ways in which it can be used. So let me just log in quickly here so I can get into, there we go, no, I don't want that. Okay, so and I think as Allison mentioned, I've been teaching now using either hybrid or online courses, fully online courses now for about 3 years. Starting off with the hybrid and the online have mostly been something that's been coming through the short sessions, the winter session and the summer session courses that are offered here. Most of the courses, too, just it matters to an extent, are the general education requirements. The summer courses tend to be upper level, but for the most part, they're general education. So there's a broader component to the subject matter, as well as you have students who are the broader base of students. I mention that because when you look at the online components, one of the things that I think has been running throughout this is student interaction, student retention, in terms of are students going to be sitting through a whole lecture, are they going to get involved with the discussion, are they going to fully embrace it, or are they going to sit there and say, I have to answer a question, here's my one sentence, I'm done, I'm good, I'm now moving on. So there's a variety, of course, just as we have students who really enjoy a class and get into it, we have others that, as my cousin used to say, C's get degrees. And that was the joy of my cousin. Grasp. When I first started with the online components, we were educated in a little bit in VoiceThread, but also in a software called Camtasia, which could then be downloaded onto your laptop, your computer, and it allows you to present or create video lectures or short videos. And that, just to sort of show very briefly here, assuming I can actually go to that once again. Winter session. It allowed you to create these short videos, you'd film them, you'd edit them, and then from there you would...
I think you're in her account.
Am I in her still?
Yeah, because you just logged out of the Blackboard and not the portal. So go back to the first tab as well.
Yes. Well, let me do that then.
And log out from...
Thank you very much. That, yes.
So if you click on login, I'll give you a logout page.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. That was, we could still be here. Nope. Let me just...
Click on Blackboard from there, from that page where it says welcome.
That's what that's mine?
Do log
Log
out.
out over on the right.
That is yours.
Oh, you probably
It is
go
yours.
to
It says
another.
welcome, Philip. Over there.
And then when I hit Blackboard, it goes to her courses, though. If we see medieval...
Okay.
Yeah, medieval civilization. Let's just log out of that one.
I
think you have to close all your browsers.
That's what I'm,
I'll click on log out there.
log out there. There we go. And let me do this. But anyway, just to sort of, so it's not a lovely little dead space. In doing Camtasia, I was able to record based on presenting or putting up on the screen a PowerPoint, getting the microphone going, and then videoing or essentially recording my audio as I was going through with the video of the lecture. It was, now because of Blackboard and space limitations, I would have to essentially take a lecture which would go to about an hour and a half, depending on what was going on, and to cut it down into about 15 to 20 minute segments, and then upload those so they could actually be uploaded again, given the limitations of that time. I also, so I had, what I would do would be posting in the lecture section, the content section in Blackboard, a series of about, and for a winter session perhaps with the 15 classes roughly, I would have 15 lecture topics within each one, 3 to 4 MP4 files that would be about, again, 20 minutes long on average. Students were then asked to review these lectures on a daily basis and then respond to them with discussion board, where I would post questions based on that, or give them a phrase or a quotation or something along those lines. I would also be familiar, which is something I found back and forth, and one of the reasons I've steered away from this as well. But at the very end of the semester, I decided to go and have one on VoiceThread. Basically because my lovely 2-year-old Dell laptop was dying on me and it wouldn't work with Camtasia. It would overheat and shut down constantly. With that, I asked students, I actually had a discussion board at the end of the semester, what did you prefer, VoiceThread or did you prefer Camtasia? And out of the responses I got, which were limited, it was VoiceThread they enjoyed. And the one comment, just to read to you, an individual said, I preferred the VoiceThread to the video lectures because it was easier to go back and revisit information if you had missed it on VoiceThread. The slides were very clear and easy to understand. You were able to see what your other classmates were thinking. I've taken other online courses before, and in those we were required to post in the discussion section and respond to our classmates. While I enjoyed reflecting on the daily lectures, I feel it would have been better to be able to see what my classmates were thinking, or to have a discussion with them in the discussion section of the online course, sort of to immerse yourself in that moment as much as possible, to recreate that discussion within the classroom. Another student had mentioned that she liked the slide-by-slide structure as opposed to having the larger video segments because it was easier to figure out what part of the lecture it is you wanted to hear again, as opposed to scrolling back and forth, back and forth. So students began to tell, or essentially voice, that they had an easier time using VoiceThread, and it was something that they were far more, my interpretation of it, far more willing to engage in, based on the fact that they could interact with the instructor and interact with their fellow students. So, in going back to this now, the current course that I'm teaching, and it's an asynchronous online course. And what we've done is we have weekly lectures for this course. I have created a content section, online lectures folder, in which we have numbered in that the weekly lectures on the different topics. Each one is a distinct link. So what I have set up is, so for example, if someone wanted to go to, say, our lecture on folk and folklore, and I think I'm going to have to log in for this. There we go. That's set up. Beautiful. So what I then have is the lecture. What I have done is put, and we can go now here to the slides, the individual slides. I upload essentially to VoiceThread my PowerPoint presentations for my courses. Again, usually a series, depending on the lecture and the material itself, of about 15 to 30 slides. In some cases I've had 60 if it's very image-oriented. What I have looked for in this is trying to be a bit more concise than I am in an in-class setting, where in class in a PowerPoint I can go through image after image after image individually, especially in comparison or contrast points. I would try to then condense them a bit more in what I'm doing in the online setting here. But getting back to the actual slides themselves and what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do. So I have audio, which we don't have here, or hold on a second. Let's see, is it back? Let's see what we have for audio on the computer. That's all we have? Okay. We'll see if this works. Oh, there we go.
Folklore and American identity. In this process of creating a national identity, what we're starting to look at is...
So, and just as was said earlier about seeing a video of yourself, I don't know if I've ever heard my voice and actually enjoyed hearing it in a lecture, but the students don't, it's for them. I find using audio, especially the lectures and using the slides, it's the best way to sort of recreate the classroom experience to an extent of being able to go off of lecture notes, provide the information, and to ad-lib, as I see fit with certain points, which can then be adjusted as the semester goes along, as you start to get, even in the online setting, a bit more of the personality of the classroom. finding out what their interests are, finding out certain components based, well, the interest and what are points that you might need to especially reinforce depending on the assessment components that you have. Now, what I've done because of the whole concept of trying then to get the broader involvement, which is ideally the joy of VoiceThread, is that it's there in the moment. I've got my icon created, and as was shown earlier, the other students have. So as you go through the different slides, you will start to see that I've encouraged students on the syllabus, and I'll get to the syllabus in a second, it's an important point, but on the syllabus and in Blackboard, as I introduced, that we'll be using this to not only, or basically to try to get involved as much as possible. Comments and questions as they would in the classroom, as they would raise their hand or add something to a lecture, to another question, whatever, to try to get involved in some way. I have some students who are very good at it, and they will then come and add their own commentary to it. That's up all the way. So I have some students that have actually embraced this a bit more and tried to get more involved, and I've encouraged them more and more as well to use the audio component because in 1 minute of typing versus 1 minute of talking, you can say drastically different amount of information and express yourself. Not everyone is open to this, and especially for comments in general and questions in general, not everyone is open to audio. What I have tried to do then, and what we'll see is, for example, on this slide, you see the numerous icons. What I've done is I label certain slides as student questions, if you will, the homework for each lecture. It's perhaps forced participation, or ideally forced participation. I don't like to use that term, but that's part of what has enabled students to get more involved in terms of presenting a question on these slides to students about the image, how the image might relate to a previous slide. I have quotations that will have this on, and general slides, which will be a combination of some outline notes, if you will, and an image. But I assign usually about 3 to 4 of these per lecture, again with the hope, the desire that it will get students more involved. The majority of them leave rather brief responses, sometimes responding to other students, sometimes not. But it is a means by which you begin to see a bit more of the dialogue going on. It does present a concern from my standpoint in the fact that as I label certain slides student question, just so students know that this is an assigned component of the lecture, in the back of my mind is how many students go into the lecture, look for the assigned question, go, listen, answer, and then close the lecture, which I guess I'll find out in the final exam to some extent, what's just going on with that. But the format overall, and I've been doing this throughout the semester, is that. I have the variety of images, I have the variety of notes. They will take, on average, about 40 minutes to an hour 20. So close to a full class time. This is for the asynchronous class. I look at this, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? How do I want this set up? I, as I mentioned, feel that it's one of the better ways, especially in comparison to what I was using, which was Camtasia and the videos, to actually bring the students in and get them more involved. As opposed to having a video and then saying, shut down that program, go into another program, open up a discussion board, answer the questions. This has the material in front of them. It's fresh, if you will. It gives students a chance to actually, in that moment, go and leave their comments, leave their questions, and to engage with one another. I'll be doing this for summer classes, which will be upper level classes over the summer, of course there's summer classes over the summer. But I'll be doing that, and I'm hoping to see with the smaller classes if it's more engaged. If I have, especially with graduate students in some of these courses, if it will be something where there will be a bit more discussion and questions. I will also be, as was mentioned, using what we have now with Lehman, where students have access to Blackboard to push their own presentations forward, to start to create their own 4 or 5 slide presentations on different topics. The biggest questions that I have, though, in looking at this, and I know my time is running out here, will students embrace this? With the bigger classes, it becomes more of an issue. I think even my smaller class in the winter session, students were far more interactive. Will they accept the outside website? I think as students gradually get used to it, especially the younger generation is so more technologically adept, they do so. Fully listening to the lecture. That's something I think is still in work in progress to some extent, but the hope is that in this slide by slide, it will sort of present the same format that you have in class. And then the student question slide that I mentioned earlier about will they just do the assignments. So with that, just the overview of what we've been doing. We have the links now for Lehman students and for Lehman faculty to go directly from what we have with, I don't know if I have the link up there, but we have the links now where faculty and students can have their courses directly linked, I think as you showed quite well, to the individual slides and the presentations. I think it's something as we see more competent and more educated students in terms of their technological awareness and their ability and their lack of, I guess you would say, a fear of approaching this. I think this is a nice vehicle to indeed use. I think there's the hump, though, still, to get over to say outside resource. It is free for students, even if it's not through the university. They can just register to answer. It's free. It has this nice continuity, I believe, and it's something that I think, like so much of online teaching, is going to be that work in progress, and we'll know more about this with every month as it goes by. I will shut up at that point.
Did we want to say a little something about the uses of it for having students create their own presentations?
Or should we leave it open for questions now? I know it's 12:55, so
Is it all right?
5 more minutes. So if you want to add anything, I would.
Well, I was thinking you could use it, have students do audio and have a means of collaboration. If you want to do something like the argument between Henry IV and Gregory VII over the investiture of bishops, you could have them put together a presentation in which they argue with each other with the audio function, and provide images and perhaps images of the letters between the two men that express their understanding of that particular argument that was so prevalent in the Middle Ages in the late 11th century. Or do biographies of people, famous people, or events, or in many ways put together projects in the same way that we do, that they can then make accessible to other students and have other students comment on them and ask them questions about it. So.
One of the things, too, to add to this, and something that I think I've tried to toy with in the past with various success, but I think as this system gets, as it evolves, it's not just the slides, not just the images, the text, but also you can upload video, short video clips, whether it's something you can find a link to, a video link online from a YouTube or an Internet Archive or something. And individuals now, of course, with their smartphones and everything else, can upload video for projects, perhaps. So it is, in its evolution, very friendly to new technology, which is rather nice. And the different means it allows students to try to engage with the class and with the professor, I find it's a nice step forward, I would say.
Any questions?
What kind of assessment tools do you have for this? Is it tie into Blackboard in terms of when you get your comments, you can the listing of the comments and all that stuff?
What happens is whenever a student leaves a comment, the email address that you use, so in this case my Lehman, my CUNY email, I receive an email at the end of the day of the previous 24 hours of who left a comment. Now, I can then click on that and go to the individual comments for assessment. Now, it's not exactly as if I have a section in Blackboard that automatically will link up so that I can go through this and grade and say 10 points here.
If students answer, you get 30 emails, right?
Well, I'll get one email that'll have a list of the 30.
Oh,
it'll show every comment that was left on there. Right. So for something, it might have 60 comments left. So I'll know who's answering. I'll know who's answering within the time frame I've given, and I usually say, this lecture goes up 48 hours. I want your comments to or your answers to the required questions. I have to set that up. And there's still that component of, obviously it's not going to be that easy for me. So that's something that we do see.
Can you respond to individual comments?
What I like to do is try to go back. For example, I go back to the one slide I had earlier where my one student, she was talking about, she responded to my comment about identifying the folk and folklore. At the bottom, if you see here, there's 3 little sections. Every answer, every response will be designated in one of those little slots. So there's my original one with my audio, then there's hers, and then what I did is responded to hers. So if we click on mine, and then click on mine, again, we click on hers, and then click on mine again, I believe, there should be something popping up here. There we go.
Oh.
So what I've tried to do for the comments, for the student questions, that's the assignment. I will then grade those, if you will, or that's part of the grading component. For the individual comments that students leave, I will go through and listen to them, and sometimes I'll have 4 or 5 of the same ilk, sometimes they're individual. I'll try to respond. I'll usually type in that sense, a little bit shorter, and I've let students know that, yes, I do respond. So there is that component as well, and it allows students to check up a day later, 2 days later, 3 days later, and see that.
And can everyone see all of the comments?
Yes, this is an open forum.
Right, but it is password protected. It's not out on the internet.
They have to be registered for the class.
Right.
When
Yeah,
you
they come through the Blackboard course site.
Right.
When you set up your Blackboard, you create the slide, you create the presentation. At the very bottom, it has some settings buttons. So you can choose if it will be open to the public for a search. If someone were to go through and search for American folklore, would this come up? I have it set so it's not viewed to public searches, so that way it is for the students only. And ideally, for privacy and comfort, they know that it's not going out to the World Wide Web. Yes, but you set how long each slide will play. You set who can then leave comments and things of that nature. So the slides will then shift after I have it set for every 60 seconds. You can set those things up.
Right. Thank you.
Did we see a transcription there that popped up?
Which
or
one?
did you write it? When you were clicking on your response to the student?
That was not true. No. What I do is I usually leave audio for the lecture component. If I answer a student's question, I will usually type it in.
Okay, so you can.
I think that way it's something. My thinking is this: students will listen to the audio for the lecture component, but if they see the audio come up again, they might skip past it. So if there's a short little brief response I can provide in text, that's what I try to do.
Where is VoiceThread on the Blackboard site? How do you access it?
You create the link to the
You have to create the link
You have to
now.
go through the VoiceThread site, which is www.voicethread.com, and it takes you through steps. Believe me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Very easy to create the assignment, and then the assignment, once the assignment is created, it has a drop-down menu, and you click on share, and it comes up copy the link, and then you create it on Blackboard as a URL.
Oh, okay.
You do have to add a couple of things to it, but it's really simple.
Okay.
This is after this, so we get going. But, this was the setup that we have, where you have to put this link in. You create a URL link. You put this link in. That's what we've been given down here at the bottom. And then you click. This is a tool provider. And once you do that, that will then open up to.
But when you get it, you don't have the S or the Lehman. You have to add these things.
Yeah. So it's something. If you email Allison, she'll be able to provide that for you. But you can set that up so there is going to be a link between your VoiceThreads and your Blackboard.